If Death Note is the pinnacle of strategic anime, then this series is definitely about the top echelons of capitalism. Its innovative setting remains ahead of its time even today. The man was originally a rich second-generation individual, but now finds himself bankrupt. Despite swiping numerous bank cards, he is unable to withdraw even a penny. He then pulls out the last remaining black card from his wallet, a card that overdrafts from the future. As the black card is inserted into the ATM, the screen suddenly goes black, followed by a series of strange codes appearing before him, prompting him to enter a password. Desperate to survive, he inputs the password without hesitation and makes a deal. Simultaneously, his eyes turn golden. He then heads to the parking lot, retrieves the black card, and a Rolls-Royce instantly appears before him. The car door slowly opens, and he gets in without a second thought. Upon telling the driver his destination is Financial District, the driver floors the accelerator and swiftly drives forward, then pulls a special lever, and with a flash of light, the car passes directly through a wall into a bizarre world known as the Financial District, an excellent place for ordinary people to leap across social classes with the sole condition of overdrafting the future. However, the man seems to be unlucky, encountering the top capitalist, Mikuni, right away. Mikuni tries to intimidate him into retreat by casually summoning werewolves, but the man, unfazed, summons wasps to confront Mikuni directly, even naively thinking that winning or losing is merely a matter of probability. A green dial appeared on the man's body, followed by a collision mid-air with his opponent, signaling the start of the battle. However, this fight was doomed from the start. The wasp's full-force attack was easily blocked, and the man decided to gamble all his assets. He produced a lightsaber and charged at Mikuni, only to be effortlessly stopped by the werewolf. Against the overwhelming power possessed by his opponent, defeating him was as simple as lifting a finger. Within just 2 minutes, Mikuni easily seized the man's last assets. With the disappearance of the wasps, this also signaled the man's defeat. He was pierced by Mikuni's red arrow, turning him into a completely indebted individual. In despair, he eventually went to the subway station and chose to end his life, and coincidentally, the protagonist was also on that train. The protagonist, named Kimimaro, is impoverished and orphaned, leading a life of hardship from a young age. He only dares to eat the cheapest ramen and works 2 jobs daily just to scrape together enough for tuition. When classmates invite him to gatherings, he always makes excuses because his account doesn't even hold 10,000 yen. Being poor also meant that the girl he loved was taken away by a wealthy peer. Seeing her smiling profile and their close intimacy worsened his mood to the extreme. He would even study until he collapsed from exhaustion once home, as he had no hobbies except preparing for the civil service exam. The next day, he was awakened by a knock on the door, only to find a bizarrely dressed individual claiming to be an employee of Midas Bank, named Masakaki. However, Kimimaro had no interest in finance and promptly shut the door. Despite this, Masakaki mysteriously reappeared inside Kimimaro's home, asking if he wanted to earn money more efficiently. Kimimaro, wanting no further conversation, managed to get him out. Yet, when he opened his eyes again, he found himself pulled into a mysterious space. Masakaki explained that this place was unconnected to the original world and promised to return Kimimaro home after he finished explaining. Masakaki's purpose was to invite Kimimaro to participate in activities on Financial Street, and Kimimaro was the chosen entree. However, Kimimaro was uninterested in such fanciful ideas, focusing instead on preparing for his exam the next day. The concepts were too complex to grasp easily, prompting Masakaki to explain that an entree uses their future as collateral in exchange for a loan. Although Kimimaro verbally declined, he was inwardly intrigued. When he woke up, the strange man had disappeared. The next day, as usual, he went to withdraw money, only to find an unexpected extra 500,000 yen in his account. After a day of deliberation, he withdrew 10,000 yen. As he touched the money, Masakaki reappeared, revealing that everything was his strategy and the 500,000 yen was a deposit for Kimimaro's participation. Initially, Kimimaro struggled to accept this and wanted to confront Masakaki physically. However, Masakaki then produced a black card. Frozen by the sight of the black card, Kimimaro learned it was a ticket to Financial Street. It allowed free access to Financial Street and withdrawals from any ATM, using his future as collateral. Dizzy, Kimimaro saw a girl. As he regained his senses, he found himself already on the car. The girl was using counterfeit money, but to the shop owner it appeared as real. Strangely, this fake currency was rapidly entering the market unnoticed by anyone except Kimimaro. Out of kindness, he never gave exact change, which infuriated the man in front of him. Unbeknownst to him, Kimimaro's action saved him from danger, as these were Midas currencies that could consume one's future. Only those who frequented Financial Street, known as entrées, could recognize this, and Kimimaro was one of them. Just yesterday, Kimimaro was invited to Financial Street. Confronted with this bizarre world, he was instantly filled with curiosity. Masakaki took the opportunity to explain that the strange creatures around were the personal assets of entrées, aiding them in transactions. Kimimaro's asset was the girl he had seen, Miss Yu. According to the rules, every entrée must participate in a weekly battle called a deal. Kimimaro's entrance quickly drew attention, with others betting on his victories and losses to determine if he would become the strongest newcomer. Unfortunately, as soon as Kimimaro's asset appeared, the heavy-set man slashed it with a knife. Although it blocked the attack, Kimimaro's already minimal asset was rapidly depleting. Seeing Kimimaro dodge the attack with ease, the man commanded his asset to use economic magic, which resulted in a barrage of iron balls hurtling towards Kimimaro. Misu managed to block them, but Kimimaro was clearly struggling. Misu was frustrated with Kimimaro's clueless demeanor and his thoughts of quitting the fight. While trying to flee, Misu was hit by the opponent's economic magic. Her arm was severely injured by the man's iron balls, leaving it bloody and mangled. This sight panicked Kimimaro, but Misu urged him to run since their chances of winning remained if Kimimaro was unharmed. The experienced adversary pressed his advantage, not only injuring Misu but also nearly hitting Kimimaro. Taking advantage of the adversary's momentary distraction, Misu quickly flew away with Kimimaro. The adversary planned to use a 3 million economic magic attack to swiftly finish off Kimimaro. Although Misu could heal herself, Kimimaro still felt guilty. Hearing Kimimaro's heartfelt words warmed Misu's heart, but Kimimaro believed it was natural to care for someone injured. Seeing that Kimimaro was still unaware of the situation, Misu explained that injuries meant a decrease in assets, while investing in attacks could yield returns. These were the rules of their duel. Kimimaro wanted Misu to guide him, but before they could act, the adversary's next attack targeted Kimimaro. This time, a massive iron ball pinned down Misu's leg, compounding her unhealed injuries. Now, Kimimaro was utterly cornered, and his adversary prepared to deliver the final blow. The adversary unleashed a 5 million economic magic, conjuring a huge iron ball to crush Kimimaro. Misu quickly urged Kimimaro to use a mid-level economic magic. She emitted a burst of golden light, not only healing her injuries instantly, but also boosting her confidence against the huge iron ball unleashed by their opponent. Then, numerous flames targeted the giant sphere in the air, and Kimimaro's attack swiftly overwhelmed the entire arena, impressing the seasoned spectators. Ultimately, Kimimaro not only won the duel but also acquired all of the opponent's assets. After learning that Misu would return to her card, Kimimaro fainted from exhaustion. When he awoke, Masakaki reminded him that while he could freely use the assets he owned, there was a price to pay. He must participate in a deal every week and must not think of stopping. Only by declaring bankruptcy could he end this, but that would also mean expulsion from the financial district and bankruptcy in the real world. At that moment, Kimimaro hadn't fully realized the changes. When he next went to an ATM, he found himself among the ranks of millionaires, and his destiny was forever altered. His focus during classes waned, and even his meals were of the highest quality. Meanwhile, Mikuni had just obtained Kimimaro's personal information, as he was greatly interested in this boy who shared a similar experience to his own. Although Kimimaro had become a millionaire, he did not quit his convenience store job. However, he encountered a strange incident. A girl openly used counterfeit money. Kimimaro immediately recognized the fake, but the girl called the manager over. Surprisingly, what were clearly black toy banknotes appeared as real money to the manager. At that moment, Kimimaro realized he was the only one who could identify these notes, which were leaking from the financial district. Since then, The number of counterfeit bills Kimimaro received increased. 3 out of every 5 bills were fake. To prevent these counterfeits from circulating further, Kimimaro always sorted out and returned real currency to customers, which led to dissatisfaction among them who received a bunch of coins instead of crisp notes. Just as a customer was about to erupt in anger, a handsome man stepped in, paid with real money, and told the disgruntled customer to leave. This man was Mikuni, a veteran of the financial district. From Mikuni, Kimimaro instantly learned the truth about the counterfeit money and Mikuni's identity. Mikuni praised Kimimaro's transaction from the previous day and assured him that he meant no harm. Kimimaro even learned about his father's whereabouts from him. Mikuni encouraged Kimimaro not to run away, but to explore his potential and promised to help if Kimimaro was interested. All of this was being watched by a woman. Since learning about his father, Kimimaro went to his old home, which he had not visited for many years, to uncover the reasons behind his father's disappearance. Although his aunt provided no useful information, Kimimaro found a diary in an old warehouse. Strangely, it was filled with dense numbers and even bore the Midas Bank logo, confirming Kimimaro's suspicion that his father's disappearance was linked to the financial district. Eagerly, he went to the financial district to find Masakaki, hoping he could provide information about his father. Kimimaro knew his involvement with the financial district was connected to his father. However, as a high school student, he was no match for such cunning. Fortunately, Mikuni arrived just in time to help him. Mikuni took Kimimaro to an informant who naturally had information about his father. There is no such thing as a free lunch, so Mikuni paid the informant 1 million before receiving the information. The informant revealed that Kimimaro's father was an entree who was keen on deals but lost everything in a transaction and was expelled from the financial district. His fate ended tragically as an unidentified body, handled by the government and left on a park pole. Regarding his character, he was described as a miser. After learning about his father's past, Kimimaro felt abandoned. However, Mikuni, having experienced similar feelings, comforted him. Mikuni explained that his own father was a miser who, during an economic crisis when Mikuni was young, invested all their money into his company instead of treating Mikuni's sister's incurable disease. The company prospered, but his sister could not be saved. In revenge, Mikuni used his first earnings to buy out his father's company, leaving him with nothing. Kimimaro, on the other hand, was upset not because his father disappeared without a trace, but because the diary contained nothing about him or his mother. Mikuni argued that this was a grave mistake, asserting that while his father was only motivated by money, Kimimaro's father earned money for his family. In Mikuni's view, using money for others is what truly deserves respect. This realization struck Kimimaro deeply. Mikuni encouraged Kimimaro to seek what is important to him and then left alone. Kimimaro, looking at a somewhat unfamiliar photo of his father, fell into deep thought. On the road, Asset Q was surprised that Mikuni did not urge Kimimaro to join the union, but Mikuni clearly had his own plans. Their conversation was overheard by a woman, a spy sent by an organization to keep an eye on Mikuni. Mikuni was not just an ordinary investor. Owning billions in assets, he controlled the nation's economic pulse, and his true identity remained elusive. Soon, Kimimaro faced a particularly challenging enemy in the financial district, his own mentor. Due to increasing family burdens, the teacher with a modest income could hardly breathe. To support his 3 children, he had to win this battle. Kimimaro also had compelling reasons not to lose. After using their cards, they began to fight each other. But as a novice, Kimimaro was no match for his teacher and was quickly cornered. The teacher's preemptive strategy impressed the experienced spectators. For the teacher, the business model was complete and he was clearly winning. Black bills began to emerge from Kimimaro's body. Without the teacher lifting a finger, Kimimaro's assets were depleting automatically. Just then, Kimimaro's card issued a warning, but fortunately, he had a backup plan. After selling Mishu's shares, which Mikuni bought, Kimimaro had the capital to start over. Using a medium-level economic spell, he turned the game around with massive destruction caused by flames, and ultimately won. The teacher lost his future in an instant. He found it hard to accept his defeat, but the rules were set by the financial district. Timely selling of shares is a normal business practice. As a result, The teacher was expelled from the financial district. Money explained to Kimimaro that assets always hold 10 shares, 9 of which can be sold for money. Kimimaro thanked Money, who simply stated he wanted to invest in him. If things continued to deteriorate, Kimimaro would undoubtedly go bankrupt, and Money was just interested in buying shares. After leaving the financial district, Kimimaro was curious about the consequences of bankruptcy. The driver told him that different people meet different fates, which made Kimimaro think of his father who committed suicide. He feared the teacher might meet the same fate. The next day, the teacher appeared in class as if nothing had changed, which puzzled Kimimaro. After class, he apologized sincerely to the teacher, who showed no change in expression and invited Kimimaro to his home that afternoon. This deep conversation, however, led Kimimaro to redefine his understanding of the future. At the teacher's home, Kimimaro noticed something strange. None of the teacher's children seemed to exist. Moreover, even his pregnant wife's belly had changed, and the teacher stated they had no children. This was the future he had lost. Although the financial district solved his immediate financial troubles, it also cost him his family. When he asked Kimimaro about his aspirations, Kimimaro could not answer. Despite having connections like Money, the teacher didn't know why he was fighting. He had never deeply felt the concept of the future until he went bankrupt, and it was too late. His future, his cherished family, had disappeared, leaving only memories. It seemed as if the world had changed without him noticing. The teacher did not know what Kimimaro's father had lost, but Kimimaro was already very fortunate to be alive. Kimimaro apologized to the teacher again, but the teacher said there was no need. Whoever lost would face the consequences. This made Kimimaro feel conflicted since suffering, whether his own or someone else's, was tormenting for him. Therefore, the teacher suggested Kimimaro join Money's guild. While it wouldn't make him much money, it would prevent bankruptcy. The teacher himself had ended up in his current situation because he had refused to join. He told Kimimaro that he did not hate him, as the trade was his own doing. Instead, he hoped Kimimaro would not lose, because now only Kimimaro remembered the children. At this point, the financial district seemed to have reached its limit. Although Money was maintaining peace and stability with the real world in his own way, there were always people hindering his progress, like the old man in front of him. Since the old man did not plan to join Money's guild, Money naturally aimed to remove this obstacle. As the clash between two major economic powers began, both sides launched attacks instantly. The old man had teleportation skills, but for Money, this was a minor challenge. The two were evenly matched until the old man sold his stocks, overtaking Money by doubling his profits, with transactions reaching 36.9 billion. The old man planned a fatal blow on Money, but Money turned it to his advantage. Just when Money thought he had won, he fell into the old man's trap, leading to a severe backlash from a hostile takeover, causing significant losses for Money. As Money's assets rapidly drained, he resorted to a special move.
War tonight.
Suddenly, a girl emerged from the belly of a werewolf, one of Money's trump cards. She could continuously absorb the opponent's asset energy. With Q supporting from behind, it wasn't long before the old man's barrier collapsed, turning the situation around, and Money won the match. However, contrary to expectations, the old man did not go bankrupt, which was what Money wanted Kimimaro to see. Although Kimimaro acknowledged the impressiveness of the feat, Money could not see admiration in his eyes. Kimimaro did not want to become someone like Money. Their beliefs differed. Kimimaro stated he did not want to lose. He wanted to be strong enough to control outcomes and prevent those around him from becoming unhappy. The man was just stabbed with a knife, but strangely, black coins began to flow out from his body. Everyone thought he was headed for ruin, but oddly, although he was securely bound, his opponent chose not to pursue the victory. The next moment, Money was sent flying, and unexpectedly, Kimimaro's reason for this was to save his opponent. After his duel with the teacher, Kimimaro deeply understood the horrors of bankruptcy. To prevent such a tragedy from happening again, he didn't hesitate to become stronger to control the outcomes of transactions. However, what was expected to be an easy victory turned into his first defeat.
Direct. Okay. Direct.
But the financial loss was not enough to bankrupt him. Wins and losses are common in the vast financial district, so Kimimaro was not bothered. But the taxi driver told Kimimaro that even a slight loss could lead to a family breakdown. After all, the stakes of the trade are the future itself, and the future is uncertain. Upon hearing this, Kimimaro had an epiphany, and indeed, slight changes occurred in his life. His healthy aunt suddenly had to be hospitalized, and he miraculously failed an exam, though fortunately, it did not affect the exam of the person he had a crush on. However, this also made him feel a sense of loss. Additionally, previous commands had created a rift between Kimimaro and Monsieur. Monsieur mentioned that although injuries could heal, the pain they caused couldn't be erased. She warned Kimimaro to clearly discuss any complex battle strategies with her beforehand. However, their conversation was interrupted by the sound of an alarm. It turned out Kimimaro was making instant noodles. After learning from Kimimaro that instant noodles were good, Monsieur expressed a desire to try them too. But the thought of feeding her bank card felt strange, so he said she would bring some next time. At the same time, the old man, devastated by his recent defeat to Mikuni, was not willing to give up. In an attempt to recover his losses to the greatest extent, he sought out others for transactions. Despite the Mikuni Union's efforts to mediate, it was futile. Perhaps this is the true nature of capitalists. They never care about the real-world implications of their trades, only the money in their pockets. Although the old man calculated well, his opponent was not unprepared. To the opponent, all his actions seemed futile. With a slight effort, the old man was completely overpowered. Indeed, his assets visibly flowed towards his opponent. Just when the man thought he had the upper hand, the old man launched a full-force counterattack, hitting the opponent before he could react. The man was instantly on the brink of bankruptcy, with black coins flying everywhere. Even if one party was lucky enough to win, it would still be a Pyrrhic victory. The intense battle shocked Kimimaro, and simultaneously, the real world was greatly affected. Not only was the old man discovered to be involved in corruption and bribery, but his pharmaceutical company was also on the verge of bankruptcy. Confused, Kimimaro sought his teacher, who told him that the bankruptcy of the pharmaceutical company would result in 10,000 people losing their jobs. These 10,000 people represented the future the old man had lost. Kimimaro was astonished by the vast impact of the financial district on reality, illustrating the ultimate fate of those who go bankrupt. Although the teacher seemed to be alive and well, having lost to Kimimaro earlier, he not only lost his child, but also his wife, marking the future he had gambled away. Afterwards, Kimimaro presented his proposal to Monsieur, but it was met with opposition. She believed that Kimimaro's suggestion was completely impractical, echoing Mikuni's point that controlling the outcome of a match required precise self-awareness, and Kimimaro was utterly unprepared. Fighting in such a state could be detrimental to his health. At that moment, an information broker approached Kimimaro, asking if he wanted to buy intelligence on the pharmaceutical company, which was exactly what he needed. After paying $1 million, the broker informed Kimimaro that FE Pharmaceutical, established just 5 years ago, was set to acquire the old man's company in full. The owner of FE was none other than Mikuni, who used this strategy to minimize the real-world impact. Later, when Kimimaro confronted Mikuni, he was upfront about his intentions. Mikuni explained he would use the Midas money collected by the union to dampen the effects of deals, and then have the union control the financial district. This would make managing the impact of transactions easier, because in his view, neither Midas Bank nor the financial district should exist. Despite his disdain for it all, he couldn't prevent the influx of dirty money into the market, so coexistence was a reluctant necessity. By minimizing the real-world impact of transactions through the union and using Midas money to buy national bonds, he aimed to prevent the collapse of the state and maintain the current world. He argued that it was better to maintain the status quo and protect the peace at hand than to let people suffer in a clean world. However, Kimimaro still couldn't accept the flow of dirty money into the real world. Mikuni assured him that one day he would understand. To gain a deeper understanding of Mikuni's philosophy, Kimimaro logged into the union for a confrontation, which surprised the union members. Yet today's opponent was particularly challenging, and the battle was about to begin. The man opened his golden eyes and summoned an angel using the black card in his hand. Accompanied by forward-stretching lightning, an explosion occurred, and the girl's hands were severed in one stroke, with black liquid continuously flowing out. Kimimaro held Monsieur, who was down and not getting up, as tears streamed down his face. Faced with the man's strong economic power and vast assets, Kimimaro had no chance of winning. However, this painful situation could have been avoided. Just yesterday, the man had approached Kimimaro, not only complimenting Monsieur on how well-maintained her avatar was, but also revealing that he was to be Kimimaro's opponent in tomorrow's battle. He came to persuade Kimimaro to forfeit the match, offering to cover half of the assets required for forfeiting, a strategy for victory without fighting. He believed Kimimaro had no chance of winning. However, Kimimaro took the man's good intentions as mockery. The man assured Kimimaro he meant no harm and merely wanted to have a peaceful conversation. Surrendering was routine, but no one had ever accepted it before. The man also believed that maintaining balance in transactions inevitably affects reality, so not fighting was the best solution. Seeing Kimimaro unmoved, the man handed Kimimaro his business card. Kimimaro then realized he had seen the man before. It was only later, while reading a magazine, that he remembered the man's true identity. The man's name was Senoza, notable as the representative of a non-profit organization involved in sectors like education and healthcare. Despite holding a prestigious title, he was never arrogant but known for his kind nature and handsome demeanor, earning him the nickname Volunteer Prince. After work, Kimimaro pondered why Senoza acted this way. Suddenly, a car stopped in front of him, and the driver claimed that Kimimaro's aunt had issued a critical illness notice. Kimimaro was tricked. The woman's name was Jennifer. She claimed to have thorough knowledge of the financial district and revealed she was an undercover agent placed there by an international organization. She argued that Mikuni's strategy of stabilizing the present at the expense of the future was flawed. While Mikuni ostensibly saved 10,000 people, the massive influx of Midas money would ultimately rob many more of their future. Jennifer wanted to destroy the financial district, which she called a ticking time bomb, and sought Kimimaro's help. Kimimaro was unaware of all this, so he went to find Senoza. Senoza explained that although the current economic situation seems optimistic, the widening economic disparity and the influx of Midas money into the real world will gradually destroy balance. This is due to Mikuni's guild, which, despite managing trades to mitigate impacts on reality, causes the real world to shrink with each transaction. If only a potential future remains, the present loses its value. The financial district exists by leveraging the future, and its impact on the real world has deeply affected Kimimaro. Senoza then showed Kimimaro something intriguing. Upon opening a door, they found walls covered with children's drawings, gifts from children he had helped. Since the drawings represented the future, he displayed them all. However, after losing again, the drawings changed, implying that others' futures could also disappear. He told Kimimaro that in any transaction, someone inevitably loses something. Avoiding transactions is preferable, but when necessary, the only solution is to compensate the lost possibilities with other potential outcomes. Later, Kimimaro approached Mikuni. After inquiring, he learned that Mikuni had previously defeated Senoza. Mikuni held a contrary view, stating that the future is merely contiguous with the present. If the present ceases to exist, so does the future.
だがこの町にいる限り逃げ続けることは不可能だ。戦い、勝つ。
気にすることないって。ねえ、聞いてる?
The next day, Kimimaro chose to fight. However, facing a significant gap in strength, even his best efforts were futile. Unable to find a way to spare both sides from loss, he opted for a direct attack, hoping to find a slim chance to defeat his opponent. The two clasped hands and shouted in anger. After using some economic magic, Kimimaro miraculously won. Although Senoza lost the match, he was not driven to bankruptcy. He only needed to downsize and start over.
今はそんなものなんかを近くの施設に送ってるんだ。これからは寄付やカンパに頼るしかないから、僕からのプレゼントだってね。
The boy simply accepted a banknote, which a strong wind then blew away, turning into counterfeit money. Kimimaro intended to return it to the boy, but strangely, as a glitch flickered, the boy disappeared instantly, and even his mother forgot his existence. This is the consequence of excessively leveraging the future. As investors recklessly gambled with the future, it led to the earliest economic collapse in Southeast Asia. Some countries vanished from the world map due to bankruptcy, causing a chain reaction that even affected Japan in reality. Not only did Akihabara, a mecca for anime, begin to decline, but even the school campuses became desolate. Although Kimimaro sensed something was wrong, he was powerless to change it. On his way home, he saw many people rendered homeless due to unemployment. The economic downturn gradually eroded people's motivation to work. Although Mikuni observed all these developments, he continued to inject Midas money into the market to control the economic collapse, believing these issues to be temporary. Meanwhile, the devastated teacher could no longer bear the pressure. Kimimaro quickly intervened, but how could he understand the feeling of losing everything? He thought giving up all money and prestige could redeem his family, but it was all in vain. Kimimaro encouraged the teacher to keep hope, but the despairing teacher decided to commit suicide. However, Kimimaro managed to pull him back in time. Although he prevented a tragedy, the teacher was already disheartened, feeling like a broken man. Kimimaro comforted him not to give up and promised to find a solution in the financial district. Upon arriving at the financial district, Kimimaro immediately sought out Masakaki. He hoped the financial district could return the teacher's collateral and offered to compensate the bank with 100 times the assets. However, Masakaki flatly refused, stating that it was all decided by the gods, and he had no right to intervene. Kimimaro had to relay this news to the teacher, only to learn that the teacher had died in a traffic accident. This feeling of helplessness deeply frustrated Kimimaro. As he walked, he encountered an information broker at a street stall.
信用があれば金なんていくらでも入ってくる。信用が金を生むんだ。
Kimimaro casually asked about the concept of using the future as collateral for loans. The broker responded simply, stating that money is considered more reliable than the future. At that moment, Kimimaro seemed to see visions of the future. By the time he snapped back to reality, he was sitting in a car again, unclear about what had just happened, yet everything felt so real. His purpose for coming to the financial district was to burn the sinful Midas money on the spot. He dumped all the Midas money on the ground and set it ablaze, the flames consuming the symbolic evil money, reflecting his guilt over the teacher's situation and his helplessness with reality. He didn't believe such a thing should have the power to take away people's futures. To him, the future was more trustworthy than Midas money. Jennifer, however, saw his actions as futile. After all, burning the money couldn't harm the financial district because the value of the money was derived from so-called credit. As long as the Midas Bank's credit remained, money could be continuously printed. She told Kimimaro that if he wanted to do something, he needed to act fast because the country was already on a path to ruin. Kimimaro urgently sought Mikuni and directly challenged his methods, criticizing the notion of protecting the weak by sacrificing the future generation to save the present. However, Mikuni remained stubborn, believing that losing the present meant losing the future as well. Just then, they received news that the financial system in Singapore was collapsing. Mikuni decided to immediately initiate his plan and warned Kimimaro not to interfere. Coins, symbols of economic lifelines, plummeted to the bottom, followed by countless colorful ribbons stretching out and neatly lining the ground. A golden column descended from the sky and combined with a base, completing the sinful Midas money printing machine. The man then extended his right hand, and a golden sphere appeared in it. Upon contact with his brain, numerous memory fragments surged toward him, the cost of issuing Midas money. They used countless people's futures as collateral for loans. The ill-gotten money swirled around the golden column, eventually gathering in Masakaki's hat, and finally flowing into Mikuni's account as his method to handle the economic crisis. Due to the Southeast Asian financial district's assets hitting zero, it led to complete bankruptcy. People and buildings began to disappear. And eventually, Even Singapore vanished as stock points plummeted, erasing Singaporean stocks from the screen along with related memories. At the same time, major cities in China were also greatly affected. Not only did buildings in Hong Kong change, but significant changes also occurred in Shanghai. Fortunately, Mikuni had already gathered enough funds to weather the crisis. As Japan's economy began to feel the impact, and the stock index was about to hit rock bottom, Mikuni used his supernatural abilities to salvage Japan's economy. Thanks to Mikuni's efforts, the city finally stopped changing, and the trading index recovered. But only Jennifer recognized the real substance of these changes.
お前は超えてはならない一線を。
Mikuni's actions were not without cost, as Masakaki informed him that the settlement would be completed within the designated time. The next second, Mikuni returned to the real world. At the same time, Kimimaro approached Jennifer. He pointed out that although Mikuni stopped the chain reaction, it caused the nation's GDP to drop by half, even falling to levels similar to the early 1980s. Stopping it to this extent meant Mikuni had nearly exhausted all his resources. It was clear he had invested a huge amount of Midas money, and the current stability was equivalent to sacrificing more than a decade of the country's future. The consequences of this were unknown to anyone. Following this, Jennifer shared information about Monsieur with Kimimaro, information that a broker had encountered before, speculating it was related to Kimimaro's father. Out of curiosity, Kimimaro approached the information broker, who, as a businessman, had a keen sense of what Kimimaro needed. Kimimaro could only afford 1 million, and upon seeing the photo the broker handed over, not only Kimimaro, but also Monsieur were in disbelief. The broker mentioned that although the person in the photo looked the same, the hair was black, and the name was different. The resemblance indicated some special significance, suggesting that Kimimaro and his father's futures were aligned, and that his father truly loved him. Seeing Kimimaro's desire for the photo, the broker sold it to him at a low price. After this, Kimimaro's daily life underwent significant changes. One second, the park was filled with laughter, and the next, it turned into a dwelling place for vagrants. This change confused him. From then on, similar bizarre events were happening across Japan, with a sharp decline in the population. Even his colleagues disappeared, and the girl he secretly loved forgot his name. He realized that this must be the price of the protection Mikuni now provided. Kimimaro found Jennifer again, and expressed his willingness to do anything to change the current situation, which was exactly what Jennifer wanted to hear.
ここ1週間で生まれた新生児の数が少子化対策庁より発表されました。
With a casual touch, the handsome man instantly added 1 billion to the old lady's bank account. The next second, helicopters began to drop money wildly, giving all of Japan gratuitous donations, even allowing homeless people to receive large sums of money. However, behind this national joy, a new economic crisis was beginning. Due to the prior disappearance of Singapore, the US dollar rapidly depreciated, prompting the United States to recognize the severity of the situation. To prevent further depreciation of the dollar, and to resist foreign exchange interventions, G20 countries announced a $500 billion foreign exchange intervention plan. Consequently, financial institutions worldwide began purchasing dollars, causing the exchange rates of other currencies to plummet. Several countries vanished from the world map due to this impact, triggering a rebound in the chain reaction, which made the decade of national fortune that Mikuni had previously spent into a joke. To continue addressing the financial crisis, Mikuni had to seek Masakaki's help again to print money. For this, Masakaki demanded new collateral. The next second, a golden column descended from the sky, connecting to a base and emitting a continuous flow of black money. The collateral was Japan's fortune for the next 10 years, causing all assets to feel pain. The printed money all converged into Masakaki's hat, eventually flowing into Mikuni's account. At the same time, Kimimaro learned about Japan's current situation from Jennifer. She told him that everyone's lost future was due to Mikuni gambling with Japan's future for the next 10 years. To stop the operation of the money printing machine, they would need to seize the black card from him. Jennifer explained that there is a several-hour delay between the creation of Midas money and the loss of the future, and their only chance was to use this gap to propose a deal to Mikuni that would bankrupt him. Once they obtained the black card, they could reverse the money printer, return the Midas money before settlement, and save the future. Although Kimimaro thought the chances were slim, Jennifer pointed out that despite Mikuni's vast assets, he had a fatal weakness. His power was merely due to having a lot of money. Thus, by devaluing the yen, the corresponding Midas money would also depreciate, effectively nullifying his assets and defeating him. The brief time before the settlement was crucial for deciding the outcome. To prevent union members from interfering, Jennifer asked Kimimaro to keep the union members busy while she dealt with Mikuni. Meanwhile, Masakaki had completed the asset transfer, but a union accountant tried to embezzle the funds, which was fortunately discovered in time. As tensions escalated, all money in the account was cleared, a tactic by the information broker who then distributed these funds to the public. Not only did each person's account receive an extra 100 million, but helicopters were also arranged to drop money. After ensuring everyone had a substantial amount of cash, the news of the yen's depreciation was released, prompting people to exchange it for dollars. At that moment, Kimimaro and another approached the ATM, planning to seize Mikuni's black card. Their plan was proceeding as smoothly as usual. However, Mikuni wanted to reject the transaction, but Masakaki stated that opting out would cost him half his wealth, forcing him to battle Jennifer, which she had anticipated. Meanwhile, Kimimaro encountered Gisar from the Union. Gisar was not surprised by Kimimaro's betrayal, having expected to confront him someday. However, facing Gisar's formidable strength, Misu was in immense pain due to the operation of the money printer, leaving Kimimaro to face Gisar alone. As Kimimaro prepared to attack Gisar using his economic magic, Gisar sent robots to attack him. Clearly outmatched, Kimimaro was quickly overwhelmed by the rapid assaults and knocked down. Misu could only watch as Kimimaro was injured. Gisar shamelessly attempted a fatal blow on Kimimaro before he could recover. Although Kimimaro was beaten down, Gisar's robot was also damaged in the process. Seizing the opportunity, Kimimaro charged at Gisar, striking him so hard that he writhed in pain. However, Kimimaro also received backlash from the strike, and Misu couldn't bear to see him sacrifice himself like this. Moved by these words, Misu was deeply touched. Facing an attack from Gisar, Kimimaro could only summon Misu to fight. Eventually, after unleashing a powerful ultimate magic, Gisar met his doom. A pillar of fire descended from the sky, and Gisar lost his future. Exhausted, Misu returned to her card form. Next, Kimimaro had to face his former guide, Mikuni.
Macroflation.
When he went to assist Jennifer, he found her defeated by Mikuni. Jennifer then entrusted her assets to Kimimaro, setting the stage for a duel between him and Mikuni. Kimimaro recounted the strange phenomena he had experienced, trying to awaken Mikuni's conscience. However, Mikuni was indifferent, focused only on resolving the immediate crisis. At this time, Mikuni was informed about events in Japan and realized their plan to cause hyperinflation to devalue the yen, weakening the Midas money. To break this strategy, Mikuni decided to use the money printer in a desperate move, risking all his future. Kimimaro attempted to punch the oblivious Mikuni but was easily knocked down, lacking the strength to stop him. However, Masakaki transformed Kimimaro's card into a black card, giving him the means to fight Mikuni in a final showdown. Both unleashed their ultimate economic magic, but Kimimaro still wasn't a match for Mikuni and was quickly defeated. Misu immediately came to Kimimaro's aid. Though she blocked Mikuni, she was struck down in midair, and Mikuni began draining her power. Fortunately, Misu broke free in time. In exchange, Kimimaro summoned Georges. Despite this, he still couldn't overpower Mikuni. Kimimaro is now truly in a desperate situation, forced to watch as his assets are drained away. Mikuni, unwilling to waste words, summons his ultimate attack aimed at ending Kimimaro. However, it hits a clone of Georges, allowing Kimimaro to narrowly escape. Mikuni expresses deep disappointment in Kimimaro, having hoped he would take over his position and share his values, but realizes he was mistaken. Seeing Kimimaro's resolute gaze, Mikuni orders Q to unleash his powerful move. Facing Kimimaro's verbal assault, Mikuni angrily uses his economic magic sword, but it suddenly fails, shocking him. This failure is due to the depreciation of the yen, which the world no longer accepts for transactions, exposing the facade of Midas money. As a result, Kimimaro is saved. Seeing this, Kimimaro invests $1 billion to catch his opponent off guard. Meanwhile, Maisu confronts Q. On the other side, Kimimaro and Mikuni engage in close combat. Mikuni shares his beliefs with Kimimaro, who dismisses them as mere excuses. Kimimaro asserts his determination to protect those around him. The two, holding differing views, continue their relentless battle until Mikuni reveals a flaw in his attack. Allowing Kimimaro to finally defeat him. Due to the yen losing its value, the Midas currency disappeared, signaling Mikuni's ultimate defeat. Kimimaro then had Masakaki reverse the operation of the money printer. Mikuni, changing his mind, told Kimimaro not to regret his actions. Next, the black card flew towards the money printer and, upon merging with it, Kimimaro finally reclaimed his rightful future.
So nice.
In the end, Kimimaro woke up from the reality. Once again, vibrant scenes emerged. The park was filled with children's laughter. Walking on the streets, he noticed the yen had completely disappeared, replaced by transactions in dollars. Kimimaro confirmed that he had successfully preserved his future and took out a photo from his bag.
笑っとけよかったな。